Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Living in Switzerland. The series is brought to you by Rigby. We are a staffing and project services company based in Zurich. If you or anyone you know of is looking for a new role in Switzerland, or if you're looking to hire, let us know. We'd be happy to help. The best way to do that is by going to rigby.ch/apply and filling out the form. Then, if we have anything that might be of interest, we'll gladly let you know.
Hello and welcome to the Expert Guide to Your Life in Switzerland. My name is Daniel and I work for Rigby. We're a staffing and IT services company based in Zurich.
And I'm Diccon. I live in Bern and I write books about Switzerland.
We are two Brits who both moved to Switzerland at around the same time in 2005. In this series of podcasts, we'll be talking about what we've learned since then and about some of our experiences of living here.
And today we're going to look at how to save money in Switzerland.
And yes, that is actually possible. Switzerland might not be the cheapest place to live, but there are some easy ways to save your pennies.
I think, Daniel, that should actually be Rappen or Centimes.
Oh yes, right you are, of course. Although some of the things that we're going to talk about should save you whole francs.
That's quite a promise, but I think we'll manage it. And I'll start us off with one of my favourites. That is the Swiss Museum Pass. This has over 500 museums included in it. And that is some big name museums like the Red Cross Museum in Geneva, which is one of my favorites, the Olympic Museum in Lausanne, the Swiss National Museum in Zurich, and even amazing castles like Chillon. You get half-price entry to the biggest museum in Switzerland, the Swiss Transport Museum in Lucerne. So the pass costs you 166 francs a year, or it can be 199 francs for one adult and up to 3 kids under 16. Now, that sounds like a lot, but actually it's amazing value if you like museums, because if you think the 5 museums I've just mentioned, including Chateau Chillon, comes to 86 francs together. Now, that's half the price of the pass just to get into those 5 museums.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something I'll take a look at. But don't forget that some museums are always free, such as the Omega Museum in Biel, and others have free days, like the Kunsthaus in Zurich, which is free on Wednesdays. And many museums have open days or special entry days, like Saturdays in August in the museums in Bern are free.
Oh, actually, I forgot to mention that you get a Swiss Museum Pass if you open a Member Plus account at the Raiffeisen Bank. I did this year, and it's great because now I just use my debit card as a museum entry card.
Now, what about something more mundane like eating and drinking? Food isn't always cheap here, especially if you like to eat out a lot. But I know we do both have some tips there as well.
Speaking of which, remember that restaurant prices include service, so you're not obliged to tip, unlike America, for instance.
Yes, that's so true. So if you do feel yourself having a heart attack coming on at the thought of a $25 pizza, don't forget that it includes service and sales tax and a decent wage for everyone working there. Anyway, back to the other type of tips. What have you got for us, Diccon?
I always carry a water bottle with me because all over Switzerland you can fill up at fountains. Now in Britain, I'd never drink from a public fountain unless it specifically was labelled as a drinking fountain. But here it's normal. For instance, Zurich alone has over 1,200 fountains, all providing fresh drinking water.
Yeah, I love that. Not only for the free water, but because it should reduce plastic waste.
Indeed, but of course, the Swiss fountains have been around a lot longer than plastic bottles. I guess you could say that the Swiss were green before green was being trendy.
One idea would be to eat out at lunchtime rather than at dinner.
Because you don't like going to bed on a full stomach?
Not really, no, but this is more about saving those francs. So most restaurants offer a fixed price menu at lunchtime that usually includes a starter and a main course. It makes the whole meeting for lunch an affordable option, and you can also upgrade your meals. So some restaurants often have a cheaper lunch menu so that you can get a taste of the high life at the fraction of the cost.
Sounds good to me. I'm always in for a bit of the high life. And I was actually reminded last week that my parents' favourite lunch spot is Manora, the restaurant that's in most Manor department stores. It's one of those semi-self-service restaurants with some things cooked to order and other things buffet style. And I'm always amazed that it's really good quality at a really good price.
Yes, it's a bit like the Co-op and Migros restaurants. They're very popular. They're good value for money.
Exactly. But I have to say my favourite thing is cooking at home. And after I moved here, which is many moons ago for both of us now, I quickly discovered that the best time to go food shopping is around about 4 p.m. That's roughly when the supermarkets reduce anything with that day's sell-by date. So you can get many things 50% off, especially meat and fish, which, as you know, aren't cheap in Switzerland. And of course, Saturday afternoons can be a real bonanza.
Right, because of course shops are shut on Sundays.
Yes, it took me so long to get used to that. And the other fact that a public holiday counts as a Sunday, so that the day before is a Saturday in shopping terms. Now, buying food at half price also stops it being thrown away, which brings us to the Swiss fact of the month.
Yes, which is that every year Swiss supermarkets generate around 100,000 tons of avoidable food waste. About 95% of that is from unsold food, and disposal costs are an estimated 10 million francs a year.
That's rather sobering to think about, so much food going to waste.
All right, let's move on to something a little bit happier and talk about what's free in Switzerland, if that's not a contradiction in terms.
No, not at all. Free lunches might be hard to come by, but you can enjoy some free food. My absolute favorite is the Cambly factory shop at Trubschachen near Bern. Cambly is one of the brands of biscuits in Switzerland, and you can taste all you want from the whole range of sweet and savory biscuits for free. And then you can buy them afterwards at a big discount compared to the price in the supermarkets. It's truly biscuit heaven. Now, sadly, at the moment, you can buy, but you can't taste thanks to corona restrictions, but hopefully they'll be back to normal soon. You can also see cheese being made and taste quite a few varieties at the Emmental Schaukäserei in Affolten. It also has free entry, and I found it really interesting. Just remember, not all cheeseries are free, but this one is, and I'd really recommend visiting it. And of course, there's the answer to last month's quiz question of the month: how much does it cost to visit Federal Parliament?
And as you've probably guessed by now, the answer is it's free. There are regular tours of the building when Parliament is not in session. Do remember to bring a picture ID with you though, otherwise you'll be left looking at it from the outside.
And not only Parliament, but most churches and cathedrals in Switzerland have free entry, unlike, say, St. Paul's in London or St. Peter's in Rome. Plus one place I still haven't been to, which is CERN in Geneva. Have you been there yet?
No, not yet, but it's just moved up my to-see list. Two things that I have seen already are two of the best free sites in Switzerland, one being the Rhine Falls, which is Europe's largest waterfall. It's really impressive when the water is in full flow. You do have to pay a few francs to get very close to the falls though. And the Lavaux Vineyards beside Lake Geneva, they're a UNESCO heritage site, and I love going in autumn when the vines are golden and the wine isn't bad either.
But I'm guessing that's not free.
The tastings usually are, as long as you're not tempted to buy anything.
Well, for me, I'm more into water than wine, and there's nothing I like more than swimming in the Aare on a hot summer day, floating around Bern and seeing the city from the water. Unusually, Bern's outdoor pools are all free, unlike in most other Swiss cities where you have to pay to use the bodies. But even in Zurich, there are free options like swimming in the Limmat rather than the lake.
Yep, actually, outdoor fitness is a good option in general, not just hiking and biking, which of course don't cost anything, but also things like the Vita Parkour.
Oh yes, those outdoor gyms, which I haven't actually used yet, I have to admit. Did you know they were a Swiss invention? The first one in the world was created in Zurich in 1968.
And now you can find them all over Switzerland. They're a great way to work off all that chocolate and fondue and get some fresh air at the same time.
And you can also do that with free bikes. I never realized that in quite a few places you can get a 2-hour rental for free. For example, in Valais or in Zurich. You simply need to leave an ID as a deposit at the bike station.
Yeah, maybe this is a good point to mention that we covered many money-saving tips in our travel podcast a couple of months ago. And that was things like the popular half-fare card, or junior cards for those with kids.
And Super Saver tickets that you book online in advance, or hotel guest cards that you get when you check in. They typically give you free public transport and reduced entry to sites. For example, the Ticino card is great value because you get the whole canton included.
You know, one thing that we didn't mention was the mobility car scheme. There are cars all across Switzerland and you pay per hour and per kilometre. It's perfect if you need a car for an hour or so or for short distances. It's certainly much cheaper than hiring for a whole day.
Yeah, I haven't actually ever done that. I always think, oh, it's going to be so complicated, but I think it's quite easy once you get the hang of it. Talking of things being cheaper, we should really tackle a couple of money-related issues. We both know that the Swiss don't really like talking about money.
But we're going to anyway.
Exactly. Starting with the perennial problem of health insurance. Don't forget, it's obligatory here and the premiums only ever seem to go up. But there are some ways to get them down again. When I was writing the expert guide, the book, I worked with comparis.ch, which is the main website for comparing insurance premiums. And they gave me some great tips.
Oh, that's interesting. What did they tell you?
There are 3 basic ways to reduce your monthly premium. Firstly, you can change insurers. You can usually do that once you give your existing insurer notice, and then you can switch at the end of the year. So you'll typically notice in November lots of adverts for health insurance because that's when people decide to switch. The second way is to raise your deductible. The deductible is the part you have to pay yourself in the event you need medical treatment or see a doctor. The higher the deductible, the lower the premium.
Yeah, but you'll have to pay more out of pocket if you're ill.
True. So you have to think carefully about the overall cost, so the premium and the deductible. But the good news is that the maximum annual deductible is set at 2,500 francs. So it's not like the USA where you can go bankrupt from your medical bills. Lastly, of course, you can switch models. Now, I have the house doctor model, which means I always have to see my GP first, except in an emergency, obviously. And in return, I get around about 20% off the premium.
Those are great tips because healthcare is great here, but it doesn't come cheap.
Not at all. So what have you got for me on the money front, Daniel?
Well, maybe one idea would be to sign up for shops' customer cards like the Co-op Supercard or the Migros Cumulus card, the Oral Fuseli Premium card. I know some people don't like having all their purchases stored and tracked, but you will get lots of vouchers back and there are in-store special offers and things like that. They do add up after a while.
Me too. I'm actually a big fan of those cards. And honestly, I don't really care if Co-op knows that I buy far too much chocolate. Speaking of cards, the one thing that shocked me when I first arrived here is how much banks charge you for things that are free in the UK, such as credit cards or even bank accounts. You're expected to pay the bank to do their job, even though you now do most of it online for them. It still annoys me, which is why I have a Migros credit card. It has no annual fee.
Yeah, and let's not even start talking about negative interest rates.
Please don't. I'm going to explode if we do.
Well, we wouldn't want that. Let's look ahead to next month instead, when we'll talk about Swiss traditions and festivals.
And Christmas markets.
Those two. And here's the quiz question of the month as a teaser. How many Sundays are there in Advent?
As always, we'll give you the answer next time. Until then, it's goodbye from both of us.
And thanks to you for listening. We'll include links in the show notes to our guest and to further materials about some of the topics that we've spoken about today. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Once again, this podcast was brought to you by Rigby. We're a staffing and project services company here in Zurich. If you would like our help either to hire or to be hired, let us know. Best way to do that is by going to rigby.ch/apply and filling out the form. You can also sign up for our newsletter at rigby.ch/newsletter to receive our Living in Switzerland guide. We'll send you one email per month about expat-focused news and jobs in Switzerland. So thanks, and until the next time.